Hello and welcome to another episode of the Confidence Connection Show, where we share women's stories of confidence from all around the world to empower you to build your confidence too. This week I am joined by the beautiful Fortune Walker, all the way from the USA. She is the founder of the Single Mom Side Hustle, a self-help book to financial literacy and independence. She's also a partner in Reina Real Estate, I hope I said that right, a woman-owned and operated business whose goals are to purchase, rehab, and provide housing to survivors of domestic violence. Her objective is to publish SMSH, came from her own personal struggles with finance and escaping a domestic violence situation herself. While Fortune has been met with hard times along the way, she has overcome many difficulties and exemplifies succeeding against all odds. She has not been prepared to live the single mom lifestyle. After starting her most recent business, she decided to share her blueprint with other women who are looking to expand their knowledge in financial literacy. Her plan is to give back to single mothers and those rebuilding after domestic violence relationships. She is an associate in criminal justice and has also gone on to become a notary, signing agent, title agent, and receive certificates in business from the Women's Business East Conference Committee, formerly Women's Business Development Center. She's a first-time writer and speaks at community groups, nonprofit agencies, and in the media. She lives in Philadelphia with her 8 and 14-year-old boys. So welcome, Fortune. What an intro.
Thank you.
I love how much you do. We were just talking about that. But do you want to introduce yourself, tell us about yourself, about your background, how you got to be where you are today?
Absolutely. So, a little bit about me. I came from a multi-ethnic home. My mother is Italian and she's mixed Irish, and my father's African American. It took a long time for me to actually be comfortable in my own skin with coming from a multi-ethnic background, just because for a long time you kind of had to choose who you were. When you put in an application, it was like check one. And for most people, you kind of breeze through that. You're like, all right, yeah, I'm this or I'm that. And for someone who's multi-ethnic, you're kind of like, well, if I identify as one, I'm kind of almost denying the other. So that was a big thing for me growing up and learning to identify. I became a mother very young. I was with my high school sweetheart. We had 2 children together, but the relationship was very, very unhealthy from every aspect. It wasn't until it became volatile that I realized it was something that I needed to escape. And from there, I had to learn how to not only love myself, but learn to be on my own. I had gone from living with my parents to raising children and being with their father to being just a single mom and having no idea what to do. So that's just a little bit about me and my background.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And you say your multi-ethnic background led you to develop a high level of confidence. So tell us about that. You kind of started to touch on that, but just how did that help you build?
Yeah. So like I said, at first, it was actually a little difficult to grow up that way. And I wasn't really sure how to identify. But once I did, I started to embrace that I'm not just one ethnicity and I don't have to identify as one. I started to realize that it was okay to be both and embrace both. And actually, through having my children who are also Hispanic, I learned to kind of embrace all of it. We brought things together and cultures and just became a melting pot. And it helped not only with their confidence and identifying who they are and not just saying that they're Hispanic or identifying as one ethnicity. It helped me too. So I was able to grow with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love how much we can learn through children, right? Like
Right.
You're meant to be the leaders, so to speak. There's so much you can learn through them as well, which is awesome. So I'm glad they helped you. So it takes a lot of confidence and vulnerability to speak so openly about having been in a domestic violent relationship for 13 years. So tell us, how do you develop the vulnerability, the courage, the confidence to actually talk about that? Because I'm sure it wasn't an easy. You don't just wake up and decide you're going to start talking about it. It's obviously a process to, open yourself up.
It did actually feel like it was an overnight thing. Obviously, it is not. Okay. Like you said, it is definitely a process, but eventually one day it just clicked. I realized I'm not the only one. And as saddening as that can be, there was a weird bittersweetness to it. It was kind of like, okay, if I'm not the only one, then that means that there's other women who are equally afraid to speak up. And if I can't do it for myself, do it for those who have lost their voice. I realized through a lot of research that there are women who never had the opportunity to leave, who unfortunately lost their lives to this. And it made me it gave me almost a second wind. It was like, speak for them. So I decided that I wasn't going to just survive anymore. I was going to actually speak up and be a part of something bigger than myself and help other women in finding their own voice as well. So I know that most women who may come to us eventually in the future for housing may not be ready to speak up, but I want them to know that they're not alone, and that by speaking up, they're not only giving themselves power, but they're also lighting something for others.
Yeah, I was just full body goosebumps just in. That's such a beautiful way of looking at it, that, you know, doing it for everyone else, even if it's funny how as humans, we find it easier to do things for other people than for ourselves, right?
Yeah, for some reason that did it.
Yeah. You've also started a lot of businesses, which are all very purpose driven, coming back. A lot of it seems to come back to domestic violence and helping others, which is awesome. So tell us about all the multiple businesses you juggle.
So my first attempt, I'm not sure if you or any of your followers are aware of the statistics with domestic violence victims, but it usually takes about 8 attempts to successfully leave their partners. So one of my first attempts when I went back, it was almost like a little rebellion. It was like, I'm here, I feel stuck, but I need to do something. I need to show him that this is not okay. And I couldn't figure it out. And then one day I decided, once again, through speaking for other people, it might help me. So I started a nonprofit, and I called that the Fortunate Foundation. And the goal was to be able to give resources, assist women, provide shelter. And I started that when I was probably 21, 22. That didn't work out so successfully because I then had to leave myself as well. And I didn't have a lot of time to focus on a business. Years later, when I successfully left after several failed attempts, I decided I needed something that didn't require as much time as a 9-to-5 or as much focus. And I found becoming a notary did that for me. Closings and stamping things don't take long, but the payout is much greater than an hourly 9-to-5 position. And I was able to be a single mom and multitask and take on other things. And that's where the notary and title business came from.
Yeah. Awesome. And what about the housing? So is it just that side of things that you do, or do you have more to do with the housing side of it?
I do. So Reina is a little newer. It's Queen in Spanish. So So Reina, we want to buy up properties in some of the neighborhoods where there's a lot of rundown homes or distressed homes, and then we fix them up. So we're beautifying the neighborhood. We're keeping the community together. And then we want to be able to connect with some of the other resources that are available. Because one of the biggest issues when I was trying to leave was that there was not availability, or I felt unsafe bringing my children into some of these environments. So if there's overcrowding in a domestic violence shelter, they send you to a homeless shelter, which is co-ed. And you're kind of like, right? It's one dangerous situation to another, and it's scary. So I wanted to provide places where women had time to kind of get themselves together, meet other women who have either gone through this already or are currently going through it, and be able to help each other, and then give them those opportunities to build some new skills so that they can get jobs and be independent, not feel like they have to go back.
No, that's awesome. Such a brilliant idea. And what would you say to anyone listening, maybe in a similar situation to you, or maybe not, that wants to start a business but doesn't know where to start?
I would say finding mentorship or a small business association of some kind in your area. Because as much as I want to give advice, I think a lot of mine would be relative to where I am. So finding mentorship with people who have already started these things is a great place to go. Outside of that, I just say go for it. Just do it. And I know it sounds insane, but once you get started, you start to realize that things get put in your way so that you can figure things out. And it'll make sense once you get started. So for me, it was like, I'm just going to start my LLC and just get the paperwork. And then I was like, all right, well, now what? And then, like I said, people reach out to you. You start seeing things and talking to people and networking, and it all just kind of falls into place once you start taking the first steps.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And I couldn't agree more that you're like, oh, can I do this? Like, I'm not, no one knows me as doing this thing and I don't know anyone else, but yeah, once you start putting yourself out there, then slowly, surely people do start seeing you as the go-to person.
Yep, the universe starts to put things into your life. People, places, and things are all just available to you once you start.
Yeah, totally. I love that. So you've also got your book, The Single Mom Side Hustle. So tell us more about that book.
The book started because I had a lot of women who watched me, I want to say grow up almost. They watched me go from this very insecure, quiet, just person. I just was very introverted, if you will. And then they watched me become, I don't want to say loud, but I'm just outgoing, and I've become a totally different person, personality-wise, financially, just in all different aspects. I've grown. So I've noticed that women would come to me and be like, I've literally watched you pick yourself up. How did you do it? And at first I was like, I had to live. I don't know. But once I started to realize it was kind of more important to answer that with a lot more detail and a lot more love to it, I started to realize I needed to maybe put something together that wouldn't take so much time with each individual person. I could maybe say, hey, here's a link to, a little bit about me and how I got started. And if you have more questions from there, feel free to contact me. And that's exactly what I did. I started to just jot down things. And then, 20, 30 pages in, I'm like, I feel like this is a book. Just make it a book. And that's what I did. I did make it less about my personal story and more about how to become, more successful, if you will, and financially literate and free. But all of it is important. I think sharing your story is important for other people, and helping one another and giving back is a big thing.
Yeah. And that's amazing. I love how it's always so noticeable when you do go through that personal growth and you do develop and change. And you're not necessarily even aware that you are changing, but it's like everyone around you's like, did you get a haircut? Like, something's different. What's happening?
They're like, you're glowing. I don't understand. I'm like, I don't know.
Life is just happening, but it's getting better. So I love that. That's so cool. And I love that you did put that resource out there to help so many people. And I hope it has helped lots of people. And, a lot of it you say in that book is about finance and literacy. So financial literacy. How important do you think it is that finance should be taught in schools?
It's funny that you asked, because I actually just spoke at a few schools about finance. I think that it is slightly disappointing that we haven't put more emphasis on this yet in schools. I know that obviously the curriculums that are in there are in place for a reason, but I do also think there should be so much more that we are learning besides basic math and algebra. I mean, we should be able to do a budget, not algebraic expressions. So, I mean, I did get to go and talk to children, and we discussed how to budget and what the importance of a dollar is and what comes behind earning that money, and becoming a entrepreneur. So it was very interesting to see them open up and share their points of views on things. I think it's definitely something we need to start integrating.
Definitely. And I think I remember having the options of like economics and stuff as an option, but it was kind of like, well, I don't want to be an accountant when I grow up, so why would I go do that? It wasn't kind of, this is a subject, and it kind of was more business focused rather than like personal focus. It's like no one kind of said, hey, this could be a good subject to take that might just help you personally, even if that's not going to be your career later on. But should just incorporate it into math lessons, because a lot of it is math and practical math, not just x plus y plus z for no reason. But I love like practical math, where it's like, hey, this is bring in your receipts for the week or something, and let's like calculate something relatable to you. That's, I think, a lot easier for people to grasp as well than just plucking numbers from the sky and saying, hey, here's an equation.
Right. That and learning how to balance a checkbook, savings, And even credit building. I think it's amazing that we don't discuss that more, not only in households, but in school. Considering how big of a deal it is. I mean, that's how you buy your first home. And the fact that a lot of people don't learn this until they're in their 20s is it blows my mind. And I'm extremely disappointed and want to help this become more of a discussion.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love that. And I love that. Well, I don't love it's just interesting that, even though we're a world apart, it's the same across multiple countries, the same problem, that it's just not a thing.
Wow.
And side note, what difference are you making? Like, how are you teaching your sons that financial literacy from a young age so that they don't have to go through that trouble in their 20s?
So initially I was kind of just throwing things at my kids. I was like, hey, when you turn 18, we have to like build your credit. And then I started to realize they don't understand. They don't know these things. I'm like, telling them all this stuff doesn't mean anything. So then I started to have discussions with them. I'm like, all right, my oldest specifically, I'm like, if you decided to get a job at, ABC company, you need to break down and look at how much you're actually making once they take out your taxes, once you've paid all your bills. People say pay yourself first, but you can end up getting evicted or having your utility shut off that way. Like it's unrealistic on certain budgets. So I actually started to break it down and share these things with them and put things into perspective. Like if you want to buy a game console, how many hours do you have to work at a specific job at a specific rate to be able to do that? I started teaching them about credit and discussing with them what I'm doing on my part as a mother to help them when they turn 18, like making them, I can't think of it, but it's kind of like a credit piggyback. I put my son as an authorized user. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I made my son an authorized user on my credit card, which builds his credit now. So by the time he's 18, he'll be at instant score. So I shared that with him. I mean, again, everything's just put in perspective instead of just thrown at them. And they have little things that we do, like when they get their money for their chores for the week, they make extra, they do extra. So it's little things like that I think help to mold their minds in the right direction.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I like that. I know there's parents have different views and not everyone's capable of doing the chores and the pocket money. And I know we grew up with that. And I think it does, if you're able to, help a lot, because it does just teach you to earn for yourself rather than just expecting to be given things. And
I appreciate your money more.
So that's great. And I love that you're kind of being open a bit about your finances too, because I know my parents weren't, and there's just unrealistic expectations otherwise. Because I know I was working with some other work that I do separate to this, but I was with a school trip doing something, helping out the school trip, and like at the end it's like, any questions? And the place that we're at, the kids, one of the boys was like, he's like 10 or whatever, and he's like, how much do you earn an hour, sort of thing, like, this is a cool job, I want to do what you guys do, and how much do you earn an hour? That's just funny, because even if you said, obviously we didn't, the people didn't say what they earned an hour at the place we're at, but it's like, even if they had said to a 10-year-old boy, I'm like, that actually means nothing to you, like
right,
you would have no grasp of what that income is going to do for you in life, because it's not taught, and you probably get $5 or $10 pocket money and you would think $10 an hour is brilliant. So
right. But when you put it into perspective, it kind of changes things for kids, because you hear $13 an hour and you're like, wow, that's awesome, especially when you hear a lot of your friends in their teens making 7, 10, whatever they're making. You're like, 13 is pretty good. But when you start to tell them, like, 13 gets you like a teeny tiny apartment, which isn't awful, but like you have to put into perspective what the reality would be on that budget.
Yeah. And I forget too, to put in perspective, New Zealand and USA American incomes are like, it's different. Like our minimum is like $21 or something. So I just forget that you guys are actually quite different in terms of your income. But anyway, that's getting a bit sidetracked. We're just interested in all that, but that's not quite what we're here for. But I love that teaching financial literacy at a younger age, because you just get to 18 and you're just thrown in the deep end. It's like,
adulting is not fun, especially when you don't know what you're doing.
I know. And like ours is different too. I think like our tax gets taken off every paycheck. So you just get your paycheck and you're done and you see what it is. But it's like, I'm earning so much, but then you receive your check and your pay slip and you're like, where did half of that go?
Right.
I said I was eating this much an hour, but you're giving me this much. Anyway, that's great that you're teaching that and putting that out there. So back on track, what's been your proudest achievement so far?
Honestly, I think it's being a mother. It was something that, because I started so young, I wasn't sure I was capable of doing. There's no courses, there's no certificates, there's no like ribbons or trophies. There's none of that. So you have no idea how well you're doing. But sometimes I look at them and just go like, I did something right. I don't know what, I don't know where, but I think being a mom has to be one of my proudest and most successful spaces in my life.
Yeah.
Kept them alive, so that's a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like they're doing pretty well, so that's good.
Yeah.
So maybe your next book will be on, how to be a teen mum.
Oh gosh, no.
And what's the biggest lesson you've learned so far?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I think one of the biggest lessons was being open-minded, understanding that no one is perfect and majority of us don't know what we're doing. You see people and you think they're so put together and they're kind of in their own minds floundering. Like they're like, I don't really know, but I'm in this position. And, I feel like having that confidence in yourself is huge. So I think that lesson taught me a lot and it got me where I am. I wouldn't say that I'm where I want to be, but I'm not where I was. And that's probably the biggest and most important part of this.
Yeah. And I don't think we should ever really get to where we want to be because we should always be striving to grow and get better. So although always be grateful for where you are, but your goalpost always keeps moving further and further away the more you tick off achievements along the way. So if you could get one message across to all the listeners today, what would it be?
There's so many that I want to share, but one would be if you are in a situation where you feel in danger, I implore you to seek help, speak out, talk to loved ones. If you're not, make sure, from statistics in the US, it's 1 in 4 women. So if you have 4 friends, one of those women are unfortunately in a situation that they may not be ready to share. So just check on your friends. And then as far as confidence, if you are looking to start something, if you are in your road to self-love, keep going. There's going to be hard days. There's going to be days where maybe you forgot what you were doing this for. Just maybe make a note to yourself so that those days you can go back, reflect, and remember why you started whatever you're doing.
Yeah, that's so true. Always keep your why close to you. I have like my big vision board next to me and it's got my why right there. So if I ever get up and I forget, I can just look and be like, that's what we're working towards. That is why. That's awesome. So thank you for sharing your story. Now we wrap up every show with questions around confidence specifically, although I think we've touched base on that a lot already. But what does confidence mean to you? What does it mean to be confident?
To me, confidence means just having a clear mind and being able to know that you are secure in yourself, you are in the moment, and a tad bit about self-love, because I don't think confidence has to do all about self-love, but there's a dash of that in there. So again, I think a lot of us say we love ourselves, but sometimes we don't know who we are and we haven't made it to that mind-opening experience just yet. So I think confidence is a journey and there's a lot of aspects to it. Yeah.
There is. Great answer. And you're right. I don't think you can't be confident if you don't love yourself, because it's where it stems from. So, and how do you help people build their confidence?
I would have to say by just letting them know that what they're going through or what they're doing is relatable. Not that they're not unique, but there's other people in these positions or whatever they are feeling insecure about, that they're not the only ones. And I think that's a big thing, because I think people tend to get in their own heads and say, oh, okay, well, I can't do this business because there's 20 of them. And it's kind of like, well, you know what? Don't worry about what those 20 people are doing. You are you. And that's where the unique part comes in. And the confidence has to kind of back that, to realize that, yeah, there's 20 people doing something similar, but they're not you.
No. And those 20 people can't do it like you.
Exactly.
They're not you. I always like to think of that too. Whenever I'm like, oh, there's someone else out there doing similar to me, I'm like, but they're not doing it how I'm doing it.
Right. Exactly.
It's awesome. What would you say to someone who's wanting to build their confidence but doesn't know where to start?
I would say spending some time figuring out who you are. Find out your likes and your dislikes. Put boundaries around those dislikes. Make sure that people aren't crossing your boundaries. And if they do, have a way to handle that. I think that's a great start because, again, once you know yourself, you can love yourself better. I think, again, there's a difference between being confident and arrogant. And those are thin lines. Some people think that, confidence is making everyone think that you're amazing. And it's kind of just knowing that you are. It has nothing to do with anyone else's perception of you. And their perception of you is none of your business. Worry about you and what you think of you.
Yes, that is what I love to hear. That is exactly how I feel about it too. And how I see the difference between arrogance and confidence is that the getting external validation versus your own internal validation. But also I think that arrogant people are like, I know how to, like, they think they've already got it figured out and they know that, like, I know how to do this. Whereas I think a confident person doesn't necessarily know how to do it off the bat, but they're like, I know I can figure it out. Like, they're like, I may not have it perfect right now, but I have the ability to figure it out, I think, as opposed to I can get it done, first time perfectly because I'm the best person ever.
Right. That was spot on. Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. And what's something you know now that you wish you knew when you were younger?
Everything that I know now. Everything. I realized everything. How ignorant I was from confidence, business, finance. I mean, there's just so many things I didn't know. And as much as my parents may have done to do their best, there was just a lot of things that were lacking. And I mean, I'm grateful to them and for them, but I feel like had I known some of the things I know now, I probably would have accelerated a lot quicker with some of this knowledge. So I guess that would be it.
Yeah, no, that's all. And what's your best advice you've ever been given or your favorite quote to live by?
Ooh, there's so many. I would have to say, I know this may sound cliche coming from Nike, but just do it. Just do it had to be the greatest thing I ever heard, because we sit here and we overanalyze, or at least I do, maybe not everybody, but we overanalyze ourselves before we do things. And sometimes I think hearing that, just do it, just learn that, just read that book, just start that business, just do it.
Yeah, and that's so funny. I actually posted that on my story the other day. I was wearing a Nike singlet and I was procrastinating a lot. And I was procrastinating making an Instagram story because, that's easier than actually getting your real jobs done. And then I saw myself and I was like, and it says like, just do it. And I'm like, and that's why I posted. I was like, my singlet's telling me what's up today. Just do it.
Just do it. You start to second guess yourself. Like I said, you're like, just do it. It's got to be the greatest advice.
It is. I love it too. It's definitely one of my favorite catchphrases. It's just get on with it. Just do it. And do you have any favorite books or podcasts in terms of personal growth and building your confidence?
Right now, my favorite book, I mean, I've read a few, but the one that comes to mind immediately had to be Fast Lane Millionaire. It's not necessarily about self-confidence. It's more about finance. But still, it had a lot of great nuggets in it, and it was a great read. I suggest it to anyone who's either starting business or maybe is just starting out on their own.
Yep, I'll write that down. I'll definitely have to look that up myself. I haven't heard of that one, so that's cool. And do you have any favorite people to follow online in terms of, making your newsfeed look a bit more positive?
Ooh, any of the women body positive or positivity, about business and entrepreneurship, any one of those. Not one in particular, just as soon as I see anything about women empowerment, I'm like, follow.
Yep. I love that. The same. And where can people find you or connect with you if they want to know more about what you do?
The smhustle.com. That's the S as in single mom hustle.com.
Awesome. And do you have any final words you want to share before we go? Anything we haven't touched on?
Not that I can think of, but I do want to say thank you so much. I truly appreciate you, and I just appreciate being here, and I'm grateful for it.
Thank you. I really appreciate our chat too, and I'm so grateful you came on because I think this was brilliant. I think we touched on quite a lot in there of all different topics, but I think it's very helpful, even just for other people listening, to know they're not alone. There's other people going through the same things. So thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who's watching either live or on the replay, and we will see you all next week.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.